Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the Our Turf Football Podcast. I am Dana. That's Lisa. That's Sonia. And we are here to talk about the football. We're so excited. Most people find the off season boring. I think it's honestly one of my favorite times of year. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the season. I love the games. I love all of that. But the business side of this, the chess match side of this, I think is so fascinating. And I know not everyone loves it. And, it can be heartbreaking when your team loses someone that you really want, or you don't draft the kid that you wanted them to get. But I just think it's so interesting from a standpoint of how teams are built and who's doing a good job, who's doing a very bad job, because there's lots of those out there too. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us tonight. We're excited to get started. Lisa.
Yes.
First week of free agency in the books. Well, I should say week and a half, because really it started on that Sunday, right?
Right.
Yeah, seriously. I didn't find any huge surprises, but there was a lot of movement. And some years we've not had a ton of movement.
No, and it's funny as we were talking about like the stages that we go through with this, and like I think about when free agency first started, and it seemed like we had the tags, the franchise tags, the transitional tags. What's this tag mean? What's that tag mean? And then we had our dates. Remember? Okay, well, this is our tag date. This is our, and we always laugh because we always put the treat out tag, you're it, it's like, and some players like it, some players don't. And it kind of got me thinking how far we've come since like the 80s and 90s football. Players that get released, and how upsetting it is. It's like, oh, you don't want to see the Grim Reaper when you're in training camp, right? I mean, so it got me thinking about the stages. And it used to be, to me, stage one was you got released, you got picked up pretty quickly. Stage two, to me, went money, right? Stage two. It's like the first stage, it's like you get released. I'm going for money. Because a lot of teams, if you're that good, they'll keep you. They'll keep you around a couple more years. Now it seems like we go through stage two where we're going to sign for money, right? We're good. And you can't blame them, right? You've already played 4 or 5 years. You already know concussions have totally changed the game. Injuries have totally changed the game. We're getting guys that are retiring after 5-6 years in the league. So, and I think that helps, like with the second stage of free agency, because that's your ballpark to me. That's your moneymaker. If you're good enough, you're going to go for the money. It doesn't matter if the team's not made the playoffs, the team has made the playoffs. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go to the highest bidder because I got to take care of my family. Stage three, let's talk about the Von Millers. We're going to talk about the Tom Bradys. We're going to talk about Bobby Wagner. Stage three, you almost get to pick your team. Am I not right? It seems like the older free agent veterans are, well, hold up. Well, I want a ring. If you never had a ring, I want to go to a playoff team. Odell Beckham, just throw him in there because he's, talking to different teams. And of course we have the injuries and training camp. Some, honestly, to me, with the veterans, they don't want to go to training camp. Do you want to go to training camp? Do you want to go to training camp? So a lot of them will wait because it's like, I don't want to go to training camp too early. I've been a veteran for 10, 12 years or something like that. When you get to the older players, let a couple agents, then an injury happens or something, or then you go in. It's so different. The line pattern that I think from the 80s and the 90s, 2000s to the 2000 free agencies. And it's just when you sit back and look at it, how it's changed the whole landscape of football.
It's so true. And Sonia, what's interesting to me is that you have the blockbusters the first 3 days, right?
Yeah,
so you have the guys coming right out their rookie deal. They're looking for money, but they also have the power, right? Those are the power guys. Those are Tremaine Edmonds, right? Like Edwards. We know who they are, right? Like we know the guys who are going to get a lot of money, who are going to have a million teams betting on the, fighting over them, that sort of thing. What's interesting to me is that that seemed to happen fairly quickly here. But then even some of these guys that got taken in the first round or in the first stage, excuse me, as Lisa has us in these stages, a lot of them were depth guys. I was really surprised at and those are the teams that are having a little bit more problem with the cap, which we're going to talk about the cap here in just a little bit. What's interesting to me, Sonia, I want your thoughts on teams that go for those blockbusters, teams that wait and kind of see how it settles money-wise. And then the people the guys who are just picking up the scraps at the end, where do you think that the smart lies? Like, where is the good team building built in? Stage 1, 2, or 3?
I want to say that the best teams probably build in that second stage where they're kind of getting a good foundation, but they're also getting some guys who have done things, who have, possibly won, possibly, gotten to that next level, able to I'm kind of thinking of the Lions here, because they're starting to get those second round kind of guys.
Yeah, for sure.
The guys done things, but also are trying to build and save a little bit of money and not have to get those big blockbuster guys. So I think that those are kind of the second round kind of teams are the ones that are probably building and going to do it, quote unquote, the right way, so to speak. And like you said, in taking in consideration the salary cap, allowing them to draft people and, still pay their guys, but also get that kind of experience and pay them, give them kind of at a good deal.
Right.
I think. So I think the second stage is probably where champions are born, so to speak.
I kind of agree because truly, if you think about it, you guys, those people in that first, the first boom, let's say that first 3 or 4 days, those are teams who are 1 to 2 players away from a complete team, right? These are teams that just need that defensive end, that just need a little help in the secondary, that just need offensive linemen that can block, that they're just looking for the one piece. I don't think we had a ton of those this year. I think that if you could look at any team that really was just a couple of pieces away, Miami would be a really good example of that. Even Buffalo would be somewhat of a good example of that, except for they had so many injuries last year. I think that was part of the problem too. You look at a couple of other teams, truly, you can't even count San Francisco in that because they just had no luck with the quarterback, right? And so that's a little different. But some of those, just those singular pieces. Then you see teams like Jacksonville who have all the money in the world. They're just going to go spend it all on these free agents because they can. And I think that that's really, really, really interesting. But I completely agree with you, Sonia. That second stage, those guys who want to see how the market shakes out, they want to see maybe where their money, what it's worth to them. They also want to see what teams are putting in the right pieces, right? Yeah. I don't know too many people who are dying, players who are dying to go play for the Cardinals right now because they're getting rid of Hopkins and they're getting rid of all their pieces and they're starting over. Maybe they don't want to go there. Maybe that's not where they want to be. So I find it really interesting in free agency. I would love to get into the psyche of the player a little bit more.
Right. Exactly.
And kind of what they're looking for, what they want. I think that Bobby Wagner is a fantastic example. And I'm not just saying that because I love Bobby Wagner, but right now you can't tell me that there haven't been teams sniffing around him for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Right? Without question.
Oh, without question. And that's what was my driver was him because he was that perfect stage 3 guy for me. You know, he is like the epitome of that. It's he's gonna get to choose where he goes. Let's face it.
Pretty much. And the interesting thing is he's older, so he's not going to want to be, necessarily the guy. Maybe he wants to be a rotational guy. He's going to take his time, figure out what scheme fits best for him. Maybe that's back in Seattle. Fingers crossed that's where it's at. We'll see how it goes. But he went to the Rams last year wanting a ring. He thought that that's where he was going to be able to get that. Now I wonder if that's not quite as important to him because that obviously the grass isn't always greener. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. But I have a list. There's still quite a few free agents out there that are pretty interesting to me. Let me see if I can find it.
You got Ezekiel Elliott. You got a running back there.
Elliott. You still have let me see. It looks like they have gotten rid of that. I think CVS. But they still have quite a few players that are out there and big name players too. Running backs. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of running backs hanging out there still.
Yeah.
We'll see kind of what happens there. And so I'm sorry I lost that list. But so yeah, it's really interesting to me. Our friend Graham in the comments, even the current Cardinals don't want to play for the Cardinals. Graham, you are not wrong at all. That is an interesting mess.
And at this point, you got to think that a lot of these players too, the only ones that are probably going to go to the Cardinal organization are the ones that when you look at their coaching staff, that they've played for this coach or they like this coach or they're going to, I buy into that coach. I mean, I like the way he coaches. So, players can take that into account, the other stage 2, 3 players, like you just said with Bobby Wagner. Let's just use the Cardinals. It might be something that you want to, but one of the coaches, Bobby played for. I'm not sure if it is. I don't know their whole coaching staff, to be honest with you. But it might be something like I'd fit there, and maybe he just go there because.
Yeah. Just because he could.
Yeah.
Why not play for every NFC West team, Bobby? Sure, go right ahead. No, I'm just saying. No, but it is interesting. And I think what we need to see now is there's going to be a lull, and then you're going to see a player here, a player there. I mean, we said we weren't going to talk about him, but Aaron Rodgers still doesn't have a deal. He's still sitting out there waiting for them to hash that all out, which is hilarious to me. But I won't go on my Aaron Rodgers rant this week. I did that last week. If you guys want.
But listen, did you notice though? And I'm going to tell you about my theory. Remember, my theory was that it got leaked because the Jets fans wanted to know how crazy he is in negotiations. They're not that ravenous. They're kind of like, oh, okay, well, he's kind of tough. So I think that actually worked. Yeah. Because I remember the first couple of days, Twitter was almost unbearable with Jets fans. What's going on? They're getting all fancy. Rodgers, and now it's like, okay, well, here's our list that he wants. This is what we're dealing with. And then Green Bay fans chimed in and said, yeah, you can have him. This is what we've been dealing with.
You're crazy now. He's all you're crazy.
Exactly. So I think the Jets fans are going, oh, wow. Right. Might have set them back a little bit.
Right. One other little tidbit of news I wanted to talk about, and then we're going to get into the salary cap, as Graham put it in quotes for us, salary cap. So today I found this interesting. I don't know why. I know it's happened in the past where veteran players have gone to college pro days, their colleges that they played for and done stuff. So this is not new, but it was interesting today at the Auburn pro day. They had Cam Newton out there throwing the ball. Looked great, by the way. I watched it. It looked really good. DJ Fluker was there and he looks like he's in fantastic shape. So I'm going to give you a theory about this, but I want to ask Sonia first. Sonia, it was odd to me to see Cam Newton there. Was it strange to you or no?
It was strange. Yeah. Why are you throwing? You're Cam Newton. Like, you have a body of work. They've seen it. And so I don't understand. And also, I think even though, he is pro, I think it kind of takes a little bit from the college kids as well, because, Cam is a pro. He's been a pro. Right. And these kids have not had an opportunity yet. So let them get their shine a little bit, And I think that kind of takes a little bit from them. Not a whole bunch because, it wasn't a big circus. We weren't all talking about it on Twitter. But I think that, it does take some of the shine off of it.
At the same time, to play devil's advocate a little bit, I agree with you about the other kid. I feel bad for them, except for it did bring TV cameras into their pro day. Yes. It did bring, so maybe that's helpful for them. I don't know. But to play the other side of that, though, Cam Newton hasn't played in a while. True. And when he did play last, he didn't look so good. So I'm curious, Lisa, and I'm giving this part to you. So I'm curious if maybe Mr. Geno Smith's re-rising up through the ranks has made other quarterbacks wonder if they need to show off their skills instead of just waiting, sitting back on their body of work, which wasn't so great for Cam last time. So they need to put a new spin on it, kind of like Geno did in Seattle. I had to say Geno to her a couple times.
I know she did. She did. I was going live. I just think he was out having fun. I think it's his alma mater. I think he played there.
Really?
You see a lot of the guys go back. The thing is sometimes we don't even know about it. where they'll go and hang out with the guys. And I think it's good for them because it's Cam Newton, for crying out loud. This is, he's a legend at Auburn. Come on.
Yeah, but he wasn't hanging out. He was doing throwing drills. He was
right.
Like it was his pro day.
Yeah, so he's just keeping in shape, keeping his options open.
Yeah.
It's a great, he's always, they're always welcome back. DJ Fluker, I mean, what are you doing in enemy territory? My God, you're a Roll Tide guy. He's the one.
Maybe he was in Alabama. Maybe I got the school wrong. I'm sorry. I just know he was at one of the college pro days today.
Okay, yeah, because I was gonna say it. I was. But it never hurts. Never hurts to keep the shine on, right? Never hurts to kind of.
Well, and he looked very different. He lost 30 pounds. He was very meaty. Yeah, he looked really good. Doesn't mean he can play any better. Sorry, DJ. You were a good football player. You were not elite, but yeah, he looks better. But here's the interesting thing to me. I'm wondering, and I want both of your opinions. So whoever wants to go first. Cam is no longer a starter in this league. We all know that. But it's not insane to think that he should be really looked at as a backup if he'd do it. Because I'd be okay with Cam Newton coming in behind Geno Smith if he needed to. You know what I mean? Like, is that crazy?
No,
the only opinion I would have on it is I think as a fan base, wherever he went, you'd have to have the fans behind that. Because like you said, let's use Seattle. Let's go ahead and use Geno Smith.
Yeah, we're going to ignore you, Drew Lock.
Yes, we're going to ignore you for just a minute. My fear with that is you have a former first-round draft pick, and then you have Geno Smith. I'd just be scared that one game that Geno struggled, everybody went Cam.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that would happen at a lot of teams, not just necessarily. Yeah.
So I think that's the issue you would have with Cam, because mentality, you obviously want your quarterback to want to be a starter, right? You don't want a backup quarterback that doesn't just seize that opportunity,
right?
If it came to you. So you always want your backup quarterback to have a starter mentality, because you're a backup quarterback. Yeah, I understand that. But at any moment, your life could totally change.
Right.
San
We've
Francisco.
seen it happen.
Yeah, like San Francisco. It just did. So it's interesting. But that'd be my only concern, would be any team that he would go to. First time any kind of those young quarterbacks have struggled, that the fan base would be like, we want Cam, we want Cam, we want Cam.
Well,
right.
It'd be interesting too, because Lisa, you're kind of in that situation with Tua. They just signed Tua's fifth-year option, but he struggles sometimes. So that is something that you want to make sure your backup quarterback is decent, but maybe not too good. I kind of get that a little bit, for sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Sonia?
Well, I mean, to Lisa's point, the most popular quarterback is the backup quarterback for the most part, right? If something's going on, they're always going to call for that person. So, I mean, you want somebody who could step in at any time and take over. And I think Cam would be that guy. I think also, though, does Cam want to be a backup?
Right.
That's where
that ego.
That's what I'm saying. That mindset. Yeah.
Exactly. Is he going to let that get in the way of being the backup? So I think that's probably your biggest issue with Cam Newton, is that he just wants to start. And I don't know if he could take mentally anyways a backup role. Potentially he could, but I just, that would be my biggest concern with him. Other than that, I think a backup role would be perfect.
Yeah.
It still keeps you in the league, and it still gives you that opportunity.
Right.
And
that was my point about Geno. He was a backup for years, and then he got his opportunity. Although here's the thing, I think Sonia hit the nail on the head. I don't think that Cam Newton's ego could maybe tolerate that. We'll see what happens. But all right, so I didn't mean to go off on a tangent about Cam Newton. It was just really interesting to me. So we're going to go ahead now. We're going to talk about the salary cap. So I find this really interesting. Let me pull this up. Let's see. Let me see. There we go. Cap space. Yes, we all know, my dear darling friends, cap space is real. Okay. We get that. But it's also magic, as Lisa likes to say. It's a magic cap, right? It is this wonderful thing that seems to fit like sand into whatever you need it to be, right? I look at it this way. There is a definite there's a hard number that teams have to be under. We understand that. We get that, players cost money and that they can, they go against the cap, and then there's dead money and you have to save for rookies. We got all that, right? But here's the interesting thing about the cap is that the way that it's magic is there's as many loopholes for the cap as there are for corporations and taxes, right? Like you can find a million different ways to get out from under the cap. However, eventually it will come back and bite you in the ass. Hello, Los Angeles Rams, right? And so we understand you can only play the game for so long without losing players because that money will come due at some point. But unless you just keep restructuring, which is apparently the plan for Patrick Mahomes. But what's interesting to me is that where we are right now, so that first wave of free agency has definitely gone through. You have to keep in mind that these teams need to keep, what I read was about $750,000 to $1 million per draft pick. And the reason that is because, and then you have to even mess with it a little bit more, depending on how many first round draft picks you have. Because there's lots of teams with multiples. And so they're going to have to save extra money out against those. How many teams have them in the back half where it's not going to cost them as much. So it's kind of a flexible number, but that's just kind of an estimate. Let me tell you, there are some teams who they got some problems, okay, already. So right now, the team with the most cap space and effective cap space. So effective cap space, for those of you who need to know, is the cap space the team will need to have after signing after signing at least 51 players and the projected rookie class. So effective is what we expect to see after. So the Bears are at $41 million, 36 ineffective. So that is after they sign everybody is kind of where they're at with that. The Bears are looking pretty, and why they're not spending more of that money in free agency, I don't know, but they're not. Right behind them, though, so they're at 41 and 36, right? But the second team, the Texans, they're at 25. So the Bears are up here, you guys. The Texans are down. I mean, everyone else is behind them. Teams, there's a ton of teams in that kind of $8 to $13 million range. That's pretty common. That's probably the majority of teams. We have like the Cowboys are sitting at 16 million, but 13 effective. The Colts are at 20 million with 12 effective. So you kind of can see how that kind of goes back and forth. These are the teams that are in trouble. So you have the Washington Commanders who need all the help they could possibly get, right? Sitting at right under $3 million of cap space, minus 500,000 in effective. The Eagles, the Buccaneers, and the Vikings are all over the cap. They're all over. The Buccaneers are at 500,000. And then you have the Vikings at almost 6 million. They're over their cap space. So you can see that there's going to need to be a lot of movement that will still happen. The most logical way to do that is to restructure your current players or to trade players out. And I think, and I'm interested in to find out what the Vikings have, what their plan is, and how it's going to affect their draft. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of players will be traded around the draft. Now, you have to remember, they don't have to be under this cap for a while. They got lots of time to move around with this. But what's interesting to me is how much that draft is going to affect that and how much movement we'll see in trade-wise that will include players. Go ahead, Lise.
My thing, thinking about this would be a good question to ask our friend Miguel here. What teams from now to the draft will look at free agency and say, where's my tier one players in my first round? What is my money from the first round to the second round? I wonder if any of these teams logically think that, well, we're going to trade out of the first round because that's going to save
money
from a first round player to a second round player. Maybe we could restructure him, sign this free agent that we kind of need to fill position, trade out of the first round, which will save us how much money is, like I said, is the difference between having the first pick to the 32nd pick. I mean,
it's a chunk. It's a chunk for sure.
And that's what I was thinking too. I was wondering, in the war rooms if we're strategy wise with trading out the teams that are in trouble. Now listen, we've been here before with the Saints. Remember, we were all freaking out because the Saints were like way under the cap. The next thing they know, they just all of a sudden went 17 million above it.
Yeah, they had plenty of money at that point.
And I mean, it was in a matter of 24 hours.
Yeah, it's true. Well, if you look at the teams that are in the most trouble right now, obviously the Commanders, the Eagles, the Bucks, and the Vikings, which is interesting because the Eagles lost a ton of players and they are still struggling a little bit. I mean, they had kind of an exodus out of Philadelphia, which is too bad because that team was so fun to watch. The teams right above them, the Giants right now only have 779,000 in effective. The Dolphins are right there, 4 million in cap space, 3 million in effective. The Jags, the Ravens, but those are also teams that have signed some free agents. So they've used their money. I get that certain teams that maybe have a quarterback, let's say Cincinnati, they have a quarterback, right? Waiting out there that they're going to have to pay. They need to save. They need to save some money for that. I get that. But at the same time, you see these teams who use their cap effectively between their rookies and their free agents, and they make that balance. Those are the teams that are fun to watch. And I really think that, and I'm not just saying Miami because Lisa's sitting here, because I think they've done a really good job of it. Yeah, they're only sitting there with 4 million and then 3 million in effective, but they've used it really well.
And we don't have a first round pick.
They don't. So you guys had to go out and get free agents. You had to, for sure. So what's interesting is then the dead money situation. There's a lot of dead money running around. Hello, Raiders. I see you at $30 million, $36 million for the Titans at dead money. Here's the one that kills me. And we just brought him up. The LA Rams, $52 million in dead cap money. The Bucks, $74 million. The Eagles, $54. That dead cap will kill you. And so, yes, I understand moving on from a player and that sort of thing, but holy cow, it is just nasty. So, our friend Graham in our comments said the Vikings are looking to trade Dalvin Cook, aren't they? I had heard that too. I'm not sure where his contract is at, but yeah, they've got to look money. The same with Kirk Cousins. I've heard that they're looking to move on him too. So if this whole Jets Rodgers thing doesn't work out, look out. You might end up with Kirk Cousins in New York. Who knows what's going to happen there? But
it just might.
It's interesting to me. So sorry about the rant about the cap, but I just find it so interesting because people get real worried about it right now. You have time. They have plenty of time. But I also think it does have an impact on that draft and how they draft, and not just because of those first and second round picks, but then they can trade out some players so that then they can move up and maybe get the rookie that they want. So it'll be interesting for sure. There's going to be so much going on. The draft is right here in Kansas City here in about 5 weeks or so. It'll be very fun. I hope that anyone out there listening, take the trip to Kansas City. It's absolutely worth it. I love this town. And the draft looks like it's going to be a really good time. Plus I'll be here. Lisa will be here. Sonia will be here. We're all going to be here. So you guys just need to come on out and hang out with us. It'll be super fun.
Go eat some barbecue.
Yes, we're getting barbecue. Lots of barbecue. Lisa's gonna have barbecue for every meal, people. That's what.
Dude, I love it. I'm so excited.
It'll be great fun. So, all right, everybody. Well, that is our show for this week. We're ready to, oh my God, you guys, we actually are at 30 minutes. We always go to 45. I'm so proud of you guys right now. So proud.
Especially with the cap, because we could just probably talk about that forever.
If Kate were here, we would have definitely gone. She got some opinions about that. We do love you, Kate. All right, everyone. So we'll be back again next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on YouTube. Please come over, join us, join our chat. We love to have lots of interaction in our chat, but also you can catch us on Twitter. Also, that will be posted at the top of our Twitter page each week. So we will see you guys next week. Everyone have a good night.